Absolute value. Absolute value is how far a number is from zero. I oftentimes ask or state to the students, absolutely how far is that number from zero? So when we look at the picture that we have here, if I were to ask for the absolute value of -4, here's how absolute value is stated using a symbol. Well, I would want to know how many units is it absolutely away from zero. And if you notice on the figure, it shows us that it's 4 units away from zero. So the absolute value of -4 is 4 because it's 4 places away from zero. So if we now kind of look at the other side, the positive, here I have an absolute value of +4. That's what those two lines mean. Absolutely, how far is it from zero? Well, if we look up at our figure, we have 4 spaces between +4 and 0. So the answer, once again, is +4, or 4 places away. Key thing to remember is absolute value is just the number of spaces away a number is from zero, not what it's worth. So, and it does not mean the opposite. That's the most common made mistake that students think, is that it always means the opposite. And you'll notice that here we ended up with +4 for both of our answers. Okay, so here's another one. It says absolute value, just as a reminder, does not mean the opposite. So here, just to kind of show you on a graph, we've got graph 2 on a number line. So we went ahead and graphed it on the number line right here. And that visual, one more time, is showing that 2 is 2 places away from 0. So the absolute value of 2 equals 2, because there's 2 places between the number 2 on the number line and 0. Try this one on your own. Find the absolute value of -3. You'll notice that in the graph, it kind of helped you. We're going between the distance of -3 and 0 on the number line. And that distance was 3 places. So here we ended up with an answer, the absolute value of -3 equals 3 places away from 0. So you'll notice that in both of these situations, we ended up with positive numbers, even though in the first one, we started out with a positive number, and in the second one, we started out with a negative number. Remember, absolute value does not mean the opposite. It means how far is that number from 0. Go ahead and practice these two. The first one says find the absolute value of the integer 7. Remember, integers are going to be whole numbers and they're opposites. No fractions, no decimals, but they can include 0. So find the absolute value of 7. And on number 2, they're asking the same thing, but this time they're not putting it in words. These 2 bars, once again, mean absolute value. Absolutely, how far is -1 from 0? For number 1, when it says find the absolute value of the integer 7, well, 7 is how far from 0 on the number line. That would be 7 places. So our answer would be 7. On number 2, they're giving us the symbol for absolute value, and it's asking for the absolute value of -1. So -1 is absolutely how far from 0? That would be 1 place. So our answer is 1. For a little extra practice, you can go ahead and do these two. The answer you should have gotten for number 3 for the absolute value of -5 is 5. Number 4, that is stated the absolute value using symbols of 14 is 14 places away from 0. So you should have gotten 5 and 14